Hi, I'm Joe and welcome to the channel. In this Inspired By series, I've been sharing with you an original piece of music that you can use as a practice track that has different guitar parts that show off that style of music. I play the song for you, then I break down each individual guitar part so you can use those techniques into your own music. Now in the past we've done things very genre specific. We've done Motown, blues rock, things of that nature. In this video we're actually going to take on our first artist. This is going to be inspired by AC/DC. This video is organized into different sections. In the first section, I'm going to play you that song that I put together that's inspired by different AC/DC techniques that they use in some of their biggest hits. Then I'll break down each individual guitar part for you so you can see exactly what I'm playing. And along the way, I'm going to share with you some insights that I learned when I was analyzing their music. Now, if you're new to the channel and you find any value in this video whatsoever, please do me a favor and consider supporting the channel for free by subscribing down below. Also, in the description, you'll see a link where you can download this track for free so you can practice along. Now let's go ahead and jump into the content. Before I dive in and break down each of those guitar parts, I just wanted to share some information that I thought might be interesting to you. You see, in preparing for this video, I went ahead and I listened to the top 10 songs of AC/DC on Apple Music. And I just wanted to share some observations about certain techniques or habits that they kind of include in all of their hit songs. First of all, up front, I just want to say, these songs are deceptively simple. They are rhythm masters. They're not doing anything too crazy or complex as far as chords go, which is great for a guitar player, especially if you're trying to learn this music because it is obtainable, but your rhythm has to be dead solid. So what I recommend if you're going to take on any AC/DC song is actually just practice along with the music. That's the best way to kind of get the feel and the groove and the pocket that they're laying down. Now some observations that I noticed as far as tempo goes. All their songs are obviously kind of more mid-tempo rock, right? I think the lowest tempo that I saw was probably Back in Black, which was probably around 92 beats per minute. And then the fastest one I think was Shoot to Thrill, which is about 143. And they had everything obviously in between of those 10 songs. And I would think that's probably around average, that they're probably averaging around 120, 122 beats per minute for their songs. And again, their songs, they're basically using a handful of chords, but what's interesting is it might look like open chords that Angus is using, and a lot of times he is, but he's using power chords and not in a traditional like metal way. As an example, when he's doing a G chord, he's leaving the third out, I noticed, so it gives you that power chord feel. And also another technique that he likes to use is he definitely likes to use an inversion of a chord. So let's say we're in A like this song is. Our 4 chord is D. Well, he likes to put the third of the 4 chord in the bass. And then walk up to like a G. And what's nice about that is he's adding some bass movement into his riffs. Another thing that I noticed too is a lot of their songs basically play off of more of a traditional blues type of thing where you have like a 1-4-5 type of chord progression, but they do throw in the flat 7 chord. So if you notice there, we're playing A, which is the 1 chord 4, and then we would go to a flat 7, which is G. That's always a nice little country country move. That's always a nice little blues move that you could do, is add the flat 7 into your chord progressions. Another interesting thing that I notice is that a lot of the times he's playing on the upbeat. So if you notice in the song, we're kind of go, that's on the downbeat. So it's all on the end of the beat. Da, da, da. And that's a very common kind of rhythm technique that he's doing, and it's very hard to do, especially when you're grooving in a rock band, so that's something to look out for and practice for. Another thing that I kind of notice is the arrangements of the songs. In the beginning, obviously, you're kind of left with an intro that's mainly a guitar riff and just drums lots of times, or sometimes just the guitar itself. And then later on, to add more impact and power to like a chorus or something, then the bass will come in. What's interesting too is I notice that the 5 chord they kind of leave out until they want to transition to another section of a song. So in this song that we were just working on here, this original piece that I put together that's inspired by AC/DC, I was trying to use the same type of techniques, right? We had the A to the 4. And then when I would go into like the bridge or something, right before that I would add the 5 chord. To build intensity to go in there, but it's interesting that they kind of reserve that chord for more of a transitional type of effect. And another interesting arranging technique that they do is if you listen to the guitar parts, lots of times it's more of a staccato, even though they're open type of chords. It's more of a staccato thing where he's choking or cutting off the chord after a while. Instead of making them ring. What's interesting is they use contrast so well in their music that you'll see that maybe in the verse part or the intro parts where they're kind of doing more staccato chords. But then in the choruses, they actually open up and do more of the full, whole notes. And that's what I tried to do in the second part of this song. So in the first part, we're kind of doing staccato lines, and in the second part, we're doing full chords. And that seems to be a common technique that they like to use, which is great. If you think about music and you're writing music, you always want to have contrast. And that's one way to do it, is play short chords in the beginning and then longer chords in another section of the song. Another thing that I noticed too is because Angus is using more of the open type of chords, he doesn't really have a crazy saturated, oversaturated sound. It's a very crunchy sound, but there's clarity in all the notes, so that's something also to look out for. I'm going to make a companion video to this where I kind of did like a little tone chasing where I tried to go after the Angus Young sound, which was very challenging to do. You think he's just plugging into a Marshall and he's going, but there's a lot happening there that he's just got such great clarity with all of his notes. Also from an arrangement standpoint, I noticed that the drums are very simple. There's nothing really crazy going on. It's really just letting everything fit together and gel together. No one's really overplaying, but they're just playing together just as one single unit, and that's what makes the song so powerful. And the last thing that I'll touch on is Angus's solo playing. He basically borrows a lot, obviously, for the pentatonic world. He's always mixing major and minor together, I found. And his vibrato is so unique and awesome. That's one thing that if you want to try to emulate, is trying to emulate someone else's vibrato just to kind of get it in their head of how they play things. To me, vibrato is kind of like your fingerprint on the guitar. I also noted that his bends, he takes time to get into them sometimes. So lots of times I'm very quick to go up to a note. He actually waits and then adds that wide vibrato at the end, which is great to practice and try to get more expression out of your instrument. I also notice though too, sometimes he chooses not to use vibrato. So as an effect, he'll basically do a dry bend up and then maybe follow it up with more of a vibrato thing. And that's another thing that he loves to do too, is these unison bends where he's taking one note and going up a whole note, and then with his other finger on the next string over, he's actually playing that same note. So he's bending up, and then he's just basically putting that wide vibrato on it. So that's another technique that you might want to work on if you want to try to get a little bit into Angus's head. Let's go ahead now and break down these guitar parts. So as we touched on in the beginning, we're basically going to stay with the like a 1 chord, a 4 chord, and a flat 7 chord for the beginning, but we're going to try to do those staccato chord moves as well as those upbeats, playing on an upbeat. So it starts on A with 2 downbeats, 2 strokes, and then to a D, to the G, and then we're going to do that, basically that inversion, where we're going to reach our thumb over if you can, and grab that F sharp underneath here and play the D chord, and then go up to the flat 7, the G. Now be mindful when you're doing this reach over, that if you can, have your thumb arch over enough to dampen the A string, so that's not really ringing. It just adds more clarity to that. So basically it's just playing and dancing around with those chords. Upbeat. And then when we go into the transition of the song, we're going to lay on that 5 chord like we talked about. And we're just going to do basically quarter notes into 1/8 notes. And that's just to build momentum up to get into the next part of the song. The next part of the song basically features an A holding it now this time instead of those staccato notes. And they do a little bit of a blues type of line where we're going to play off the flat 7, which is the C note here on the A string. So you can grab that with your 2nd finger. And then hammer on to the 3rd. And then hit the E underneath your 1st finger. I do that same move again. But this time I'm picking up the A here underneath my 1st finger on the 2nd fret of the G string. So it's a little bit of a blues type of lick. And again, it's a hammer on to get there. And then we're going to basically do a flat 7 to the 4 chord. And repeat that. And then back into the transition again with the E. And we chop it off. And then that guitar part repeats itself for the solo section. Now there's a second guitar part that's happening when we get to that kind of verse area, where the first guitar, as we know, is going. Well, what I'm doing with that second guitar part is I'm outlining those chords. So I'm basically taking the A for the A chord, and I'm using the 5th, kind of again like a power chord, right? There's only the root and 5th, the E on top, and I'm just kind of doing pulsing 1/8 notes. And then when we get to the G, I'm lifting up my 1st finger to expose the open G, and I'm putting my D down. Again, another type of power chord. There's just a root and the 5th to play the G. And then for the D, I'm actually put my 1st finger back down to now get the A and the D. So now we still have the same type of thing happening where we have just the root and 5th playing for the D chord. So it goes again like this. To the G. To the D. It just repeats. And then it follows the same as the 1st chord guitar part, where basically we're going to play the 1st chord guitar. The 1st guitar part, we're playing just the E chord to go into the transition into the solo. Now for the solo, basically again, we're going to stay kind of in the major, minor pentatonic boxes. And the first part we're going to do is we're going to do that classic Angus thing where he's going to do that slow bend up from the 2nd to the 3rd of the A chord. And then the crazy wild vibrato. And then you could just do a little like, and end that back up on the A. And for the second part, we're going to move into the minor pentatonic box up here and basically do more of a Chuck Berry type of thing. I noticed that that's a lot in his playing as well, where we're going to basically bend up the note and do a double stop up top. And And that's a great rock and roll move to get underneath your fingers. Then just a little bit of some blues type of blurring of notes. Again, kind of doing more of the traditional double stop idea. And all with attitude, right? You're kind of just bending and slurring these notes. And then we're going to go into a final piece, which is another classic Angus thing, which is those unison bends that I talked about earlier. So we'll bend up here from the D to the E, and make sure you have the E underneath your first finger here on the 2nd fret. And then get that wild vibrato. Jump up now to do the unison bend on the G note, and then up to the A note. So it's, and that basically ends the solo. So there's a lot that you can take away and practice from this song. Remember that this track is available for you for free in the description below if you want to download it and practice along to it. There's 2 versions. One is the full band, and the other version basically is just the drums and the bass. So you can go ahead and add in your own guitar parts and even come up with your own parts inspired by AC/DC. That's a wrap on this Inspired By video. Again, if you found any value in it whatsoever, please consider supporting the channel for free by subscribing down below, hit the like button, and knock on the bell and you'll be notified when the next video comes out. As always, I wish you a great day.